Mr. Speaker, this week is Mental Health Week, and today is the 4th anniversary of the day that people were evacuated from Lake St. Martin. These two come together in the traumatic story of what has happened to the people evacuated from their flooded communities. The continued stress of displacement has led to mental anguish, suicides, premature deaths from a variety of sources. I ask the Premier today to tell us what has been done to care for the mental health and well-being of those who were evacuated 4 years ago from Lake St. Martin, Little Saskatchewan, Dauphin River, and Penematang First Nation.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for the question. Operation Return Home is a program between the First Nations communities themselves, the federal government and the provincial government, for which we have set aside $100 million. We want to ensure that this kind of flooding and dislocation and hardship and pain that these communities have suffered does not occur again. So we're rebuilding these communities on higher ground with brand new facilities. I was talking just recently with one of the major firms in Manitoba that is going to be doing the new schools in those communities, and they're advancing on that. These families require support and need support and have received support and will continue to receive support. There have been a great deal of anguish that these communities have experienced, and I can only say that we want to make sure that when we resolve this matter that we do it in such a way that there will not be flooding occurring again. When the original flood works were built, there was no consideration of the impact on these communities in the Lake St. Martin, northern Lake Manitoba area. Now we have to do it right. We have to make sure that there is protection for those communities. We have to make sure that those communities will not flood again, Mr. Speaker.
Is the Premier saying that the mental health services are coming from the $100 million they've promised for infrastructure? Today, Mr. Speaker, the Free Press reports that there has been, and I quote, a lack of community mental health services. We've also heard from Marg Sinchishan, the CEO of the Manitoba Adolescent Treatment Centre, that there has been somewhat of an erosion in mental health services for children in care.
Yep.
This is while the number of children in care has been increasing, and as the people who've been evacuated from the 4 years tell us, CFS has to be called more often. Why is today's NDP government doing so poorly in providing mental health services at such a time of great need when we have so many displaced people and so many children in care?
They don't.
Speaker, these are important questions, and these people in these communities deserve the support that is being offered and any additional supports that can be made available, Mr. Speaker. The rebuilding is a process that has taken far longer than anybody wishes would have. The supports to these families are critically important. They need to be in schools. They need to be in safe housing. They need to have access to support services for mental health and any other issues they may be experiencing, including services from child and family services agencies under the authority of First Nations communities, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to work with them. We will continue to work with them to provide services they need and make sure that as we rebuild these communities, that these kinds of occurrences will not happen again, Mr. Speaker.
The Premier's all talk and very little action. The government must realize what the stress has been for the children and families who were evacuated. For Lake St. Martin alone, after only 2 years, there were a reported 17 who committed suicide. And for all the communities, I have heard a number as high as 40. The mental health effects of evacuation have been running deep for 4 years, and they are still counting. People who have been away from their homes for 4 years ask, when can we go home? People are also asking, will the Premier commit today to ensure that there are appropriate counseling services for those to help the people in these communities to heal?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we will work with these communities on healing as required, Mr. Speaker. They have gone through tremendous anguish. They have gone through pain. They have lost members of their communities. When people are in communities that have constantly flooded because of lack of foresight when these projects were originally built decades ago, Mr. Speaker, we see the long-term impacts of thinking about some folks while not thinking about other people, Mr. Speaker. And that's why when we take a look at the solutions and the major investments we're making in these communities, we're going to do it in such a way that they're on higher ground, they're on safer ground with new facilities. And in the meantime, we have to support these families. And I can tell the member opposite that this is one of the items I regularly discuss with the federal government when I meet with the Prime Minister. We always have this discussion about how we can further move forward on Operation Return Home to help these people get settled back into their communities in such a way that they will not be at risk of future floods, which is why we're making these very significant investments in flood protection in that part of Manitoba, Mr. Speaker, and will continue to do so. And I can only say to the member from River Heights, I wish for once he would actually vote for the resources we put in place to help these communities, Mr. Speaker.